Welcome to this week's edition of Black Authors Matter TV, where we interview the latest movers and shakers in the African American literary community. You'll meet some old friends, discover new ones, and stay abreast of the latest book developments around the country and even the world. So sit back and relax for the next 2 hours with Black Authors Matter TV co-hosts Gwen Richardson and Dr. Rhonda Lawson.
Good evening. Welcome to another edition of Black Authors Matter TV. I'm Gwen Richardson, your host for tonight, along with my co-host,
Dr. Rhonda Lawson. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. If I sound a little bit nasal, it's because I am. I'm getting over a sinus infection, but I should be 100% in another couple of days. And so before we start our amazing show again tonight, I have a couple of announcements to make. The book festival registration is open for authors who want to register and vendors. We had somebody contact us today who's a dessert vendor. She wants to bring her desserts to the festival. So we might have a little bit different mixture this year, but she wants to bring her desserts. An amazing, exciting event this year. We're expecting a couple of school districts to attend on Saturday and bring a whole bunch of kids and their parents. So we're excited about that, which is an amazing development. Also, the Black Authors Matter Children's Book Awards process is open. If you're a children's author, go to blackauthors.matterBookAwards.com to get the details on how you can submit your book for that process. And finally, we have a new line of, we're calling them lit t-shirts. They're literary themed. And last week I wore the Queens of Romance t-shirt. So tonight I'm wearing one of the other ones. So I'm going to stand up so you can kind of sort of see. This one is Men Who Wrote, and it has James Baldwin, Langston Hughes. These are all male authors who transitioned. So you can't see them all. Let me see. Richard W for Richard Wright. And the other two are Ralph Ellison and Alex Haley. But we just do the first name, last initial, so we can make the names bigger. And then there's like a book stack of books for different letters on it. So this is one of them, and I'm going to try to wear a new one each week. So altogether, we'll have 6 t-shirts, including our Black Authors Matter t-shirts. So we wanted to do something extra special, and people are repping their things they support. And so we wanted to create fashion statements for the literary community. So anyway, we're going to bring on our first guest, and her name is Carolyn Boykin. So we're excited to have her. As you all know, we have Black Odyssey media authors on this show when they release their books, especially. We try to get them on the release date. And Carolyn, if you have any kind of lighting you can use, because you're very dark.
You're sitting in the dark.
You're sitting in the dark. So if you have a lamp or a light, or maybe even the light on your phone, maybe even the flashlight on your phone. I don't know if you could do that, even use that. But we want her to come back so we can see her, because she was sitting. There you go. You turn the lights on. Okay. So thank you.
Welcome. Okay, now you have to unmute.
There we go.
There we go. All right, we're ready now.
Okay. Well, welcome to Black Authors Matter TV, and congratulations on the release of your book.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited.
I bet.
So excited for you. Congratulations.
You had 2 different dates for your release, so today was one of them. Is there a different one? Did it get moved? I think did your release date get moved?
Today is today is the release date. The book goes on sale, so the book is on sale now. You can get it from Target, Amazon, any of those online places. Yeah, so it's available now. the publishing date is March 1st.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. All
Mhm.
right. Well, congratulations again on and happy release day. And
Thank you.
your book, The Knowing, we can see it behind you. What
I
is,
like the background.
I do too.
Thank you. Thank you. Having a little technological difficulty. So I had this background for a virtual reading on Sunday and do not know how to take it down. So we get to see it
Well,
again.
you should probably leave it up.
Yeah, it looks great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
because you want for branding purposes, you want to you want it to be in people's conscious and subconscious about you as it relates to your book, The Knowing. So tell us about The Knowing. What is that? That's an interesting title. What is The Knowing about?
The Knowing is a story. It started out as a ghost story many years ago that my mom had told me, and my mom loved to tell ghost stories, and I love to listen to ghost stories. And through the years, I passed it down. I told it to my children, and later, when I went to Columbia College, I turned it into a short story. And one day, in the course of reading it to my classmates, someone asked the question, "I wonder what made him do it." And I thought, I don't know. I wonder what made him do it. And from that thought, I began to develop a character. And as the character grew in my mind, and I started asking questions like, was he born that way? Or was there something that happened in his life that made him that way? And eventually all the characters came to inhabit the story to tell how Clyde became Clyde.
Okay. Yeah. Clyde. That's interesting. My brother-in-law's name is Clyde. So yeah, my husband's closest brother, closest to him in age.
I have a cousin named Clyde.
Yeah.
So now, is Clyde a real person? Is he the ghost of a real person?
Oh no, Clyde is definitely a real person. He is a real person. The question is he a real person with touches of possession? Is he a real person that has spirits that are attached to him in his life? Or is he just a real person who's just a little bit deviated from the rest of us? That's the question.
So how do you create a character like this? Because even though he's, part of the imagination, do you do research? Do you look at case studies? How do you create a character like this?
Clyde really came into being on his own. I have a thing about my characters that as I sit and write, of course, as a writer, you sort of build your character, he looks like this, he sounds like this, and you begin to put all these things together. But as I'm writing a story, my characters basically live inside my head and they begin to inform me of who they are and what they do. One of the things that happened with Clyde is I remember my instructor, because this was my thesis in college. And so my instructor said, Clyde got to die. He's got to go.
Did he say like that?
He said it just like that. He's got to go. He must die, and I can't wait. And I was like, what? How can you treat him that way? How can you do that to Clyde? I mean, why do you want him to die? And I was like, but what if I don't want him to die? And she's like, oh no, he's got to go. And so, so I had a thing with Clyde. I had a relationship with him. I had a love-hate relationship with him. Sometimes I liked him a lot. Sometimes I felt sorry for him. And sometimes I didn't like him very much either. So he sort of, I would say, he created himself. He pretty much created himself in my imagination. And as he interacted with other characters, I grew to know more things about him.
Yeah. Well, there are some times when we write, Rhonda and I are both writers as well.
Mhm.
So when we write and then we create this really excellent bad person, uh, the bad guy or the antagonist or the just the villain, we a lot of times you have to end them, but then sometimes you don't. I mean, it just depends on where you want the story to go.
Yeah, it does. It depends on where you want the story to go. And, there's the struggle, and, as writers, there's the struggle where you don't want to make a bad guy so bad that nobody can like him. It's like
He has to have some redeeming qualities.
there has to be something, it's like, and again, my instructor told me at one point, Clyde was that person. She's like, oh no, he has no redeeming qualities. Everyone will hate him completely 100%. So then I needed to go back in and sort of soften him up a little bit, give him some redeeming qualities, maybe.
I'll
Well,
tell
you
you,
can
that's one thing
sometimes.
I like about the Marvel villains. Every
Mhm.
villain and every Marvel villain is almost an anti-villain, because in certain ways they're doing things that on the outset seem evil, but they have
Mhm.
almost a redeeming reason why they're doing what they're doing. I mean,
Right.
if you look at Black Panther, if you look at I can't remember all of them, but if you look at
Mhm.
all of the villains, they all had some reason why they did what they did. And it made you think, well, was he right? Like Killmonger. Some people say
Mm.
Killmonger was right, even though he was the villain.
Well, it's like, for me, the characters have that tragic flaw.
Yes.
They just always have that tragic flaw. Like, actually, he is bad, but, there's always that but, there's always that but. So, I love a tragic flaw in a character. All of my characters are flawed. They're good, but then they have a flaw. They're bad, they have a redeeming quality. That's just something I find that I do all the time. So, um,
Sometimes
so
the redeeming quality may be their physical appearance. They're attractive, which isn't
yeah,
really redeeming per se, but it
well,
kind of explains why they're able to get away with some of the things they're able to get away with.
that's not the case with Clyde.
Okay.
To meet this
No,
Clyde.
that very much is not the case. That is not the case with Clyde. His physical appearance is not an appealing quality. In fact, that's one of the things that he has that goes against him. His
Okay.
appearance is um, he is. I think I said at one point, he makes you believe in the boogeyman again.
Mm.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Hmm. Yeah.
So is this, and I don't want you to give the story away, but
Yeah.
did he suffer some sort of accident or something to
Yeah,
make
it's
him look this way? Or
when you read the book, you'll see the trauma. He has a traumatic birth. It's
okay, okay,
a
okay,
very traumatic birth experience. So
okay. All
uh,
right.
so he does, and so that affects him physically. There
Okay.
are things that are about his physical appearance, and all of that, and all of that goes into the question with Clyde: is it nature or is it nurture? Is it the circumstances of his birth? Is it his physical appearance? Is it what Cora the healer says, something he was born with, a darkness in his spirit that he was born with?
Mm.
Is it all of the above or none of the above? Those are the questions that Clyde struggles with. And as the reader, you struggle with trying to figure out for him.
Oh, okay.
It sounds like there are a lot of layers in this story, which makes for a very good narrative.
Thank you. I really had, I have to say, I had a great deal fun writing this book, if you can call it fun. It was as I went through it, as it developed and went in directions that I never anticipated. But I had a great deal of fun writing it. When I was young, I've always liked scary books. Always, I love them all. I
Oh,
started out with Edgar Allan Poe when I was 11. Had a
okay.
teacher who read us Edgar Allan Poe, and I thought it was the most fascinating thing on earth.
Mm.
And at 11 years old, I was in the library reading everything I could find by Edgar Allan Poe, and there was not a lot, but I read it anyway. Then I went on to read Creepy Magazine and Vampirella, and anything that was scary, horrifying, I was your girl. I was the one that was reading it. But as I read all this stuff when I was younger, there were no people of color. And I was like, yeah, where are we at? Where are we? Um,
Who is this?
yeah, right. I knew that my mother told me scary stories, and I'd been hearing ghost stories and things of that nature my whole life. But whenever I was in school and the teacher would pull out a book of ghost stories and read them to us, there were no people of color in them. When I went to the library to get the books, there were no people of color in them. And so when I sat down to write this story, one of my goals was to pull from our culture, our background, and write simply a scary story, a ghost story. And
Oh,
that was my goal.
okay. So I didn't know that Black Odyssey was doing scary stories.
They might not have before they found me,
Yeah,
but
Well,
they're
a
doing a
good
bunch of
story is
stuff.
a good story, right?
hmm,
I said a good story is a good story.
a good story is a good story. And I applaud Black Odyssey for taking that leap of faith and and saying that there's an audience out there, and there are people who might want to read it and be interested in a good ghost story, um, a good scary story. But of course, like any other story, what's a good story without some romance in there too?
Yeah, you got to throw
Oh,
some
okay.
love in there, some
That
passion.
that is true. That's what makes the world go round.
Right? What is it if you can't throw a little love in there too, a little
Yeah.
romance in there too?
Now, you say your book will be featured in Women's World. That's a
Hmm.
magazine, and that goes on sale this week, I guess. So we'll
Yes,
have to take a look. It's included in the Women's World online book club.
yeah, yep, I'm pretty happy about that.
That's
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that so far from the people that I've talked to, from the reviews, there are people that are picking up the knowing that never thought about reading a scary book. They never thought about reading a supernatural thriller like The Knowing. And thus far, people have been surprised and like, I don't really read scary books, but I like this one.
That's a good thing. That's a testament to the work you put into it.
Oh, thank you. I hope so. Um, I don't know how much I haven't shared anything, but for me, at this point in my life, I started writing, like I said, when I was very young, and then of course went on to have a very large life with a lot of things going on. Writing wasn't one of them.
Mm.
I wanted to, like most people, when I was young, when I was 18, I was like, I'm going to write a book. It's going to be a bestseller and I'm going to be rich. Those are my three objectives. Only had. And then life happened. Then you have children, you have to work, and you do all these other things. And I had a great career and a great life. And then at the age of 64, when I thought that everything was supposed to calm down and I was getting ready to retire and go into those sunset years, my job said, you know what, we're going in a different direction and it doesn't include you.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, wait, this is a different retirement plan than I thought.
Right.
And so I found myself at that age at 64, didn't want to try to go into another career. and tried to figure out what to do with myself. And someone said, you should do whatever it is you're passionate about. And I was passionate about writing. And I said, okay, well, let me try that. And so I applied for Columbia College in Chicago for their master's program in fiction writing. And lo and behold, they accepted me. And so from there, I went on and I got my master's degree in fiction writing. And the rest is history. And here I am today. So I have managed to, thank you, have
Yeah,
my dream come
I
true.
agree. You are giving hope to a lot of people who don't think they can do things after retirement,
Yeah.
and that's a whole new career for a lot of people if they choose to approach it that way.
And I wanted to say, never give up on your dream. Do not give up on your dream. You may end up, I mean, I would look on, I would see Black Authors Matter when I was on Facebook, and I would say, I want to go to there. I want to be there. And here I am. And
And you call this a
that was
second
not
chance
something
dream.
I thought that would happen, but here it is, and here I am. So
And you
I
call
really
this a
thank you for
second
giving me
chance
an
dream.
opportunity to come on to talk about writing, to talk about my book, etc. Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. What I was saying was you're calling this a second chance dream. That you had your second chance to pursue this dream of writing your book.
Mm-hmm. It's a second chance, yes, to
Which
pursue.
which I think is awesome. Now, one thing I did want to know though, because there are so many people out there who just wake up one day and say, I'm going to write a book, and they don't take a class, they don't take a course, they don't ask advice, they just say they're going to write it because they think it's easy. Why did you decide that you wanted to get a degree before you started your book?
The reason I wanted to get a degree because a lot of times, especially when it comes to people of color who write, um, there's a tendency for some people to look at them as though they don't know how to create good literature, as if we don't know what it takes to be a good writer. Okay. So I decided that, I said, okay, I don't want anyone looking down on my skills, so to speak,
Yes.
as a writer. And so I'm going to go ahead and I've been a teacher for numerous years, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get my degree. But when I got to Columbia, I remember thinking, oh, first of all, I'm surrounded by all of these very young people who speak a language I really don't understand. And I was like, oh my God, what have I done? And so I would sit there, and I remember again talking to my mentor, and she said, and I said, I'm so intimidated. I'm so intimidated by these young people, and I feel like they know things and they're able to do things that I'm not able to do. And she looked at me and she said, you know what? The things they're trying to learn how to do, you already know how to do.
Exactly.
You do them already. They're trying to figure out how to do it, and you just do it. And I thought, oh, really? And she's like, no. She said, they're trying to develop those skills. Those skills you already have. So in answer to the question, I think that I went back to school to get my certification, my master's degree, because often that's something you need to literally throw down like your business card to say, oh yeah, okay, I have a right to this. I can do this.
Yes,
I have the
you do
ability to do
this.
this. And now you can respect me because here we go. I have the paperwork. I have the validation, and therefore you can accept the fact that I can write.
Is there something that surprised you in the process of getting your degree? That did you think you knew everything about writing, and then you went through this course and maybe learned something new?
Well, actually, I think that when I was going through the course, the biggest thing I learned was that I needed to rewrite. I was a person who I thought literally everything I put down on paper was gold. It's like it just flowed out, and I just wrote and wrote and wrote. Um, and I came to find out that that wasn't necessarily the case, that basically everything I write is a draft. And
Yes.
so I write it, and then I go back and I rewrite it, and then I rewrite it again. And actually, I don't consider any work ever to be finished because I can always make it better. I can always add some more to it. So that was one of the biggest takeaways, that if I took my time and did the rewrites and really put in the time and the effort, that I could come out with a better product, that my writing in the end would look and sound better after I put more into it. So that was one of the first things I did. Um, the other thing I found was that I had to find my niche, a place where I fit in. Because especially when you're out in the publishing world, you tend to start seeing that basically they want you to write to sell. And so you want, you want to write a book, but you want the book to sell.
Right.
But I basically want to write because, as you said earlier, I want to tell a good story. I want to tell a good story. I want people to be able to walk away and say, yeah, I read that book, and man, it made me think about this. It made me feel this way about it. I hated this character. I love this character. I really got caught up in it. I want to tell a good story, and I want people to enjoy it.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
really,
that can be
go ahead.
well, it can be a little bit of a trap, but if you want to have commercial success, a lot of times you do have to write what sells. But what sells changes.
It
It
does.
A lot
does.
of times somebody comes up with a new angle or a new storyline and it takes off and everybody sings their praises because it's different from everything else that's out there. So I I pursue what I want to write and what I think
You found your
is
niche.
a good story, you know.
Mhm.
So, and I figure the people who will get it will get it. But I'm not trying to make my living with my books, not yet. I'm maybe later on. But some people, if they are really literally making their living on books, they have to be more in tune to, what the market wants.
I think that's very much true, and I
Mhm.
think that's the really great thing about doing this second season,
Mhm.
writing in my second season. I don't have to rely on my writing for my living.
Mhm.
I you know
It gives
I
you a certain
really
amount of freedom.
right. It gives me that freedom. I want, of course, my book to sell. I want it to be a success. I want all of those things to happen, but I'm not relying on it because, like as you said, if you're out there and you're a writer and you're making your living with your writing, then that's different. Then you're going to have to do things a little bit differently and handle things a little bit differently. But because I am in my second season, I'm like, I'm good. Yeah, I'm good.
Right. And you have 4 adult children, seven
Yes,
grandchildren, and
yes,
6 great grandchildren. So
yes.
Yeah,
All
you're
of
a
that
busy
is
that's
lady.
a
true.
handful of family too.
All of that is true.
Well,
Now,
Miss
sometimes I think about it and I start going through those numbers and I'm like, oh my God, how did it get here? That's a lot.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, Miss Carolyn, unfortunately, we've come to the end of the interview. So, if you, first of all, congratulations once again on your book.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your release day. Can
Thank
you remind us where we can find your book and how we can reach out to you?
You can find my book on Amazon. Of course, it is available on Amazon, Target, Walmart, Barnes and Noble, Kensington Books, all of the above. Um, you can find it. You can reach me on wordsmithing2911.com. That's my website. If you go to my website, you'd be able to, there are some samples of my writing. So I have like many drafts of different stories. so you can sample different styles as well.
Okay.
Okay, well, I
thank you
did
so
put blackodyssey.net in the chat. I'm also going to put wordsmithing 2911 in the chat as well.
Okay, and yes, please, Black Odyssey. Can't say enough about those wonderful women before I leave.
Yes.
I cannot say enough about those wonderful women in terms of the way they have treated me as a writer and how they have treated me as a woman. They are incredible, absolutely incredible. So I just have to say that.
We concur.
All
Yes.
right, thank you so much, ladies. I
Oh,
appreciate you.
Have a
All right,
great
have a wonderful evening.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
good night. Okay, and we had a couple of comments, but one said they were proud of Carolyn and couldn't wait to read her book. And one of our guests that's later in the show said she wanted to know more about her book and her literary work. So that's really great. I think that's wonderful that people don't give up on their dreams and goals
Amen.
just because they reach a certain age. I forgot who's, and I can't remember who it is now, but there's some people, like some authors will say they didn't, they were 80 before they got their big break or whatever. So it can happen anytime. So our next guest is an attorney and an author, and he has a book that's a mystery, but it's also based on true events, I believe. So we want to welcome James Hammonds, attorney and author, to Black Authors Matter TV.
There we
And
go.
you can unmute your mic.
I don't know why I guess want to sit in the dark tonight.
I know. Yeah. We want to be able to see you.
All right, so go ahead and unmute.
Now I've got it.
There we
Oh,
go.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
All right. I'm really happy to be here with you during this Black History Month. Black history has always been a very exciting period for me. In fact, right now, what I'm doing is running a series of videos called Black History Moments. And it's running on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all over the place. Because I think it's really important for us to reach back and learn from those persons who have been through this before and understand what we have to do. And I think that's really important right now because I see so many people engaged in this individual activity. They think if I do it, that's all that matters. When, you have people like Dr. King saying, we will make it to the promised land. Not me, that's not one person, but we will make it. And it involves us working together collaboratively to make things happen. And so this is the month, and I'm glad you have this program available to us and to all of us to be able to celebrate who we are and where we are at this moment in history.
Yeah, and we celebrate it every week, 52 weeks out of a year.
That's what's supposed to happen. You're right.
not
Absolutely.
Not just in February. So do you have a copy of your book handy?
My book is right here.
When Shepherds Kill.
Shepherds Kill.
And it's based on true events, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, it's based on the murder of Alderman Benjamin Lewis back in 1964. He was
in Chicago.
Found, yes, in Chicago.
Okay.
He was found at his desk the next morning after he'd been murdered by his secretary. And this became a big event in Chicago. But in all these years, no one has come forward to say that they committed the crime, nor has there been any conclusion from the police as to who committed the crime. So I thought it was well worth the effort to create a fictional story around this event. And if for no other reason than to have it set out in writing and be there for as long as we can to talk about this particular event. Also, I wanted to look at the fact that there's so many events where people, African people, have been murdered, and very little is done to actually find out who committed the crime. So I've decided that this was going to be the first book in a series of books looking at this issue of individuals being murdered and then finding a solution for the murder in the book, so that we can have some sense that there is a way that you can get some action or in conclusion from these murders that happen outside of in the community.
So
The other aspect of the book, though, which is just as important or even more important to me, is all of the issues that we kind of bring out where we look at what's happening to our community. And I think that right now we don't tend to focus as much on the various calamities that occur to us that cause us to do the things that we have to do. Just like tonight, I was listening to the news, and the young man out in Colorado is being accused of murdering a white male and a white female at a dormitory. And you look at it and you say, oh, just another Black person committing the crime. But it's never just another Black person committing a crime. There's always something in the background, something that has happened that caused that person to crack and to do what he or she is doing. And very often we don't look at that. We don't look behind the scene to find out what motivated that person to commit the crime. And it's usually something in their background. It could be based on the interactions with those white persons that they're interacting with. It could be their Black family members who created a problem for them. But there's just so many things that impact us on a daily basis that can cause us to move in the actions of committing crimes against other people and more often against our own people. And we need to look at that more and more these days. So that's what I'm attempting to do with my writing skills, such as they are, and try to
So
look at all of these factors.
Are we talking true crime, or are we talking crime fiction?
Well, crime fiction is based on true reality. Okay. That's what I think most writers would say, is that their fiction is based on something that happened in reality. Then they build a story around it, and that makes it something that people are more interested in reading. Because you can hear the news, but it's more exciting to be able to get into the mind of the individual who committed the crime, get into the mind of the persons who are affected by the crimes. And that's what makes the story more interesting to the individual, is that they can follow that from beginning, the middle, and the end in that process.
Okay, do you believe, and we see this and hear this today, and I think there's some validity to it, but I would like to get your take on it. There are some people who are kind of growing up without a conscience. A lot of times they're raising themselves, or they're in unnurturing, that's the word I'll use, environments. And that seems to be something that we're looking at now. We're seeing, for example, with the increase in carjackings, and most of those are being done by young people. Or for even example, the Super Bowl parade shooting that happened a couple of days ago. And they were juveniles. They haven't shown their picture because they're juveniles. Well, I haven't seen them anyway. But apparently it was just an argument, and they weren't thinking it's a crowd of people. If you shoot, you can hit innocent people that had nothing to do with whatever this argument is about. So what do you attribute some of this to?
Well, let me just say, first of all, my primary concern is with African Americans. So I'm going to speak from that vantage point. Mm-hmm. I think the overall issue is important, but I think also that the rest of our society has enough personnel, specialists looking into those kinds of issues, and they deal with it every day. But in our community, we find that many people do not take the time or create the environment or produce enough monies to look at what is actually happening to our youth. I once had a young person who told me, I was representing them. He said, well, Mr. Hammonds, you know, this is what we do. We get up in the morning, we go scouring through the neighborhood, and we find a house that looks like it needs, that we can burglarize, and we do it. And I said, well, you know, what's going to be our defense then? He said, I don't need a defense because I'm guilty and I'm willing to go to jail and serve my time. Well, that particular young man needed intervention. And to say that the person's family members are not doing what needs to be done, that means the burden should be on all of us to cause that person to be redirected in another way. You know, we have these juvenile court proceedings, and they're supposed to rehabilitate our young people. We have many places like Chicago where you had a drug, they pulled back on mental health services for people, and they pulled back on providing additional housing for people. And all of these things that maybe the person is not receiving at home, we as a society need to be able to step up and help them. If they need psychological treatment assistance, we should be giving it to them. And not just, oh, he committed a crime, let him, put him in jail, and that's the end of it. We need to go to and find out the root causes of these problems for the individuals who are involved in it. And we can do this. You know, we have the money. The thing that struck me recently is that when we're combated with these immigrant situations, thousands of people have come to Chicago, New York, other places. And all of a sudden, we have millions of dollars that we can allocate to help them. And I'm not opposed to helping other people, but I'm concerned that when we've been in this problem for decades in Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, and yet when people start talking about we need millions of dollars to help Black people, people seem to run away from that. And that's not just white politicians, but it's also Black politicians. And we need to make these people more accountable in trying to help our young people to actually do better than what they are. And not just simply saying, well, it's the mother's fault or it's the father's fault. Because even they have problems. The mothers have problems. The fathers have problems. Why are we helping everybody with these problems? We know the history of Black people in America. We know slavery. We know what happened with segregation and all these different negative impacts on the psychology of Black people. We know what happened when they came from the South to the North and all the discrimination that happened across the country. We know all these impacts. We know the impact of drugs coming from Latin America, Mexico, and other places. Why don't we do things to help our people? That is the question I keep raising with all the people that I know who are politicians, specialists. Why don't we help our people? Instead of just declaring, oh, he's a criminal or she's a criminal. That parents didn't do right. Why are we doing better as a community of people? And that's why I said we need to be thinking in terms of we have to get to the promised land, not just one person because they can sing or they can dance or they can play football or basketball. It should be the collective group, and we all should be looking out for one another. And that's how you get to this problem. Other people look out for their people. They bring in the site. If a shooting happens at a school, they have had no problem bringing in whatever resources they need to help those young people. We need those resources every single day, not just when a shooting happens, but every single day. So why aren't these resources being given to us, being provided to us? And we need to make that demand on people that we should get these resources. I'm not apologizing for needing resources. I'm not going to be apologizing because things happen to Black people, because I know why they happen. And we need to stop being, wishy-washy about it. We need to demand what ought to be ours. And so in my book, that's part of what I'm trying to make certain that people come to grips with, is that it's not just the matter that Tom or Sam is a bad person. Look at all the things that happened to Sam. And it didn't start yesterday. It's been that way for decades.
Well, You said a mouthful. It's been my observation that unfortunately we always get stepped on in terms of the resources because there's always a new victim or a new group that ends up moving to the front of the line or moving ahead of us. So this is the politicians are the ones who make the decisions about finances. They fund what they want to fund. They find the money for things that they feel are priorities.
It's
And
also about lobbyists though,
it
because
is.
um if I'm being persecuted and I'm not demanding that I'm treated better, and nobody is standing up for me to say I should be treated better, people are going to think that I'm satisfied with the way I'm being treated. But when somebody else is persecuted and that person feels that they have the power to stand up and say, you're going to treat me better. And then not only do they feel they have that power, they're even more empowered when other people are standing up with them, then they're going to get change. So we say that to say is this is what we see all the time in lower income neighborhoods. Often you'll see them with the streets that aren't very good. You know, the holes, the potholes in the streets, the cracks in the streets, and so forth. But nobody is making noise to say fix our streets. So nobody thinks about those. But if those same potholes were in a better neighborhood where the people feel a little bit more empowered to say fix my streets, those streets are going to be fixed because that other neighborhood is making noise. So
see, a lot of times too, if it's a lower income neighborhood, they're dealing with survival issues.
That's where I'm going. Because to them, it's not so important to fix my street. It's more important to do this or this and this. And so that's what they're focusing on. And so things like fixing streets or better books in schools and things like that often take a back burner because I'm trying to survive and take care of my family. I don't have time to stand up for the entire neighborhood. But if everybody in the neighborhood feels that way, nobody's going to stand up for that neighborhood.
Yeah.
See, that's one of the struggles that my main character goes through, because his initial effort was to I'm going to become a mayor of the city of Chicago. That's my great ambition. I've got this great education, I've this and that. But then he's confronted with the actual problems of people in the situation that you just described. Now you have to make a decision. Do I look at it, look at life as something just for me, or am I going to be concerned about the rest of the group? Frantz Fanon and Wretched of the Earth and other books that have been written in the psychology of being Black in America says over and over again that the burden is on us. Those of us who are the most educated in the group, those of us who are the professionals in the group, that burden is on us. That person who is poor and has to look out for just their survival, that's what they're doing. They're doing the best they can. But those of us who've been able to step up in the world and know more, we should have the burden of taking care of and advocating on behalf of the rest of the group. And what I find myself doing is recognizing that we will elect people to office. We will put people in high places with millions of dollars, and we sit back and say, oh, that person is fantastic because they've got millions of dollars. Well, question, how much of that million goes to help poor Black people? How much of their time is spent going out and being visible in Black neighborhoods and saying to young people, you can do better by doing these other kinds of things? And I think that's where we have fallen down in. We are not that kind of people anymore. And you can go back in our history and you'll see that no matter what, a person became a millionaire, what they would do is become a member of the NAACP. What they would do is get involved with their church. What they would do is get out there and be visible in their community. Muhammad Ali, when he was big timing with the money and everything, and even when he fell down, he would walk the streets of Chicago, talking to young people, giving out money. That is the burden that we have, but so many of us are not taking on the burden. And that's like I said, that's one of the stresses that comes out in the book, is that you cannot just be looking out for your career, your money, but you have to be concerned about the rest of the people. And hopefully by doing that, everyone gets to the promised land.
Well, I hear you. I guess ideally that would be the case, but I don't know how realistic it is, just based on the times we live in. So, I mean,
Why do you
it's
feel?
good to be hopeful. It's good to be hopeful.
Why do you feel that way, that it's not realistic?
Because for one, a lot of people, they have their own personal families and extended families that they're taking care of. They have their own, they're taking care of their nephews or nieces, or they're taking care of aging parents, or aging aunts or uncles, or aging grandparents. So and there's only so many hours and so many resources a person has.
Well,
So that doesn't really lend itself to the kind of setup where they can go into the neighborhoods and do things. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying. I don't agree with it though, because if you look back again, look at our Black history. Martin Luther King had a family. He had a
Yes.
church. He could have decided, to hell with all this other stuff, I'm going to preach every Sunday, make my money, raise my family. Malcolm X had a family. He could have said, let me not get out here and get in trouble. Let me just collect money, raise my family. We all have those kinds of issues, but we have to make a decision. Now, I'm not saying that everyone has to become a national leader running across the country, but if you belong to a church, what's the problem with you setting up a committee or a group that helps the people in your community? If you have children at school, what's the problem with you getting on the school board and being an advocate, not just for your children, but for all the children? There's nothing that it's in our heads that's stopping us at the moment. And that's why I said it's very important for us to have Black history. And even more important, as you said earlier, to have it 365 days in a year. But if you have Black history and yet you're not really taking the time to understand Black history, you're just mouthing, oh, Martin Luther King and giving his speech or something like that, then you're wasting your time. But if you get into it and you learn about our people and the struggles they had, we understand that everybody has had a struggle. They could have all quit, and did nothing. But you could have escaped from slavery and been in the North and ran your own job. But instead, certain people came back, brought more people with them. That was the kind of commitment that we've had to the betterment of the African people in America. That's the commitment. Now, will I say everybody has that commitment? No, I'm not suggesting that to you at all. But I'm not going to let us off the hook by saying each of us could do something, some part of that process. I think, and that's really important. Even if it's just writing.
Yeah, a lot of people are doing things, but they're doing them quietly too. Not everybody's going to lead marches or whatever. And just for the sake of conversation, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X both, they didn't spend a lot of time at home with their family.
Well, they spent enough time at home to have children.
To create children, but you can read, I've read the history on it. Neither one of them spent a lot of time at home with their children. So you can be a community leader and then end up neglecting your own family too.
No. Yes, that's not true. Don't be a community leader. Do not be a community leader. But if you have a degree in psychology, what stops you from taking the time out during a week to have a group of young people and talking to them and advising them as to how they can improve their lives? If you have a degree in education, what stops you from taking and setting up a group in your community to help young people to learn about things that they don't know that you can help them with and get them moving on the way. It's just all of our professions, whatever profession we might be in, there's something we can do to help in our community. It could be at the local level or it can be a larger level. Not everybody's going to commit themselves to doing things that
You're absolutely right. Even if you do a little bit, you're helping the bigger cause. Some people may be able to do more than others, but we can all do something for the betterment of our community. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, I am saying it. And I'm also understanding that from our community perspective, not everybody is on the same page. I understand that. You know, in fact, some people are working against us because they see it as that it's in their best interest financially to work against us. And we have to also be willing to call them out when we notice and see this stuff happening, because it does make life difficult for those of us who are trying to help people when they see these other people doing things counter to that effort. And we have to call them out as well. So, you know, whenever we come up with excuses for not acting like we know better to do, that's just an excuse. And we know better. We were taught better. All of us were taught by parents, grandparents, great grandparents better than most people are acting at this current moment. That's why those of us who have some years on us have to stand up now and say, we can do better than this. This is not us. Walking around, whatever
We
it
can
is.
agree on that.
Yeah.
We can always do better.
Than this.
We can always do better because the biggest room in the world is room for improvement.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. But I'm talking about doing better based on our history. Our history says we've been able to do this at this level. And now we've dropped down. We can do better than where we're at in terms of dropping down. We did, we were able to get together to elect President Obama to be president. Why? Because we have been nurturing the idea of Black power long before the election day. But most people, when they voted, if you had told them this is an example of Black power, they probably would say, "Oh, I don't want to do that." But that's because their minds have been brainwashed. They didn't understand that back in the 60s, when you said Black power, part of it was that Black people want to be able to control their political destiny. And that's what we're doing. Every time we elect Black people to positions, every time they go anywhere, that is an example of us exercising our Black power. But the minds of young people and many middle-aged people today would not be able to understand that. So we just do it without telling them it's Black power because they wouldn't get it. But we have to do it. We have to make certain that we make them collect the votes and do it. Just like right now, we have all this activity in courts because many of the white communities in the South and some in the North are gerrymandering their districts so that they can replace Black elected officials with white elected officials. It's an ongoing process. The struggle for power is an ongoing process. And we cannot be sitting back saying, oh, we're okay. We're not okay. Because as you said earlier, every time a group comes in, they would supplant us. Every time somebody comes along with what is determined to be a bigger problem, they're going to be the ones that gets the fruits of the society. We cannot accept that. I will not accept it. And I think all of us who are educated African Americans should be out there saying, no, we're not going to accept this. Not just for my personal benefit, because I can possibly get a job and do well. But I want to be able to say, I pulled up somebody else with me as I went marched along. Because I remember when young Black people went to restaurants and sat there and got spit on and got beaten on and did everything else. And if that resonates with me to the point where I can't sit back and say I can do nothing when I have my history that says, look what people did so I could be in this comfortable position that I'm in today. That's just not right. And so my job is to then communicate that to everyone else I meet, whether they want to hear it or not. I think that I have to communicate, and I do it. You know.
Oh, I wish we could talk longer because this is a conversation that needs to be had. But unfortunately, we hit the end of the half hour.
Yes.
So just very quickly, if you can again show us your book and remind us where we can find it.
When Shepherds Kill, you can get it online, Amazon, any of the other online booksellers. You can even get it at your local bookstore. It's everywhere. Thank you very much.
And thank you.
It's a hardcover, right? Is it available?
Hardcover.
Back?
Yes, Amazon has it in paperback.
Okay. All right then.
All
Well,
right.
thank
You all have a great evening. Enjoy the
Thank you
rest
so
of your
much for
holiday.
being a guest on the show. And thank you for engaging us in a great conversation.
All right, thank you. Have a great night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Well, Rhonda, you want to take it away with the next guest?
Hi there.
Well, hello, here, Miss Antonia Hylton.
Hey, thank you for having me. Nice to see you.
Thank you for being here. I love your hair, by the way.
Thank you. It's on day 2 or 3, so I'm glad it's still looking okay.
Oh, see, my day 2 or 3 would not have any curls in it. It would be a pretty afro, but it would not be curly like that. Well, welcome to the show. Welcome to Black Authors Matter TV. We're happy to have you.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, let's just jump right in there.
Let's do it.
You have an amazing new book, and I heard about your book from a customer of mine, and I have mentioned this particular customer on the show because she's one of our oldest book customers. She's been buying books from us since the year 2000, and we haven't had our bookstore since 2010, but we're still able to order books. And she listens to NPR every day and in interviews with new books that come out. And she told me about your book, and then I looked it up and I said, oh, we need to get her on the show. So, and she's in New York. Her name is Jean Angel Campbell. And I want to give her a shout out, even though she doesn't have internet. She's 80 years old and she doesn't have internet or anything. So, but and she doesn't even have a TV. Miss Campbell says she just listens to the radio. So anyway, I heard about your book through her, and I thought it was a fascinating title and subject. And it's called Madness. Do you have a copy of your book?
Right here.
All right.
Madness.
And it's Race and Insanity in a Jim Crow Asylum.
The whole thing is almost unnerving because the word asylum in and of itself, you say the word and these horrible images pop into your mind. And then when you say a segregated asylum, I just start thinking about people who were not treated fairly, whose health was not taken seriously because this was a segregated asylum. So those are the things that pop into my head. And then I don't live that far from Anne Arundel County. So that was unnerving in and of itself. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about the book, and are some of those images in my mind, are those kind of what happens in the story?
Well, there are parts of the story that may feel familiar to you. Mental health care for so long has been horrible. I mean, just the reality of what in the early 20th century it looked like for patients of every background could be really, really bleak. And so some of the images people have of asylums and the abuse that went on there, absolutely, that you'll see that in the book. But it's a really complicated and rich story that is actually less about just this one hospital and more, in my view, about actually the soul and the psyche of this country. I really use the hospital, a place called Crownsville Hospital in Anne Arundel County, Maryland, that opened in 1911 and didn't close until 2004, within our lifetimes. Wow. And I use that century-long history to show how the mental health care system in this hospital became reflective of all of our country's battles over emancipation and freedom, over integration and civil rights for Black Americans, and then even moving into the trend toward mass incarceration and away from mental health care, bringing us all the way up to the present day. And it's a deeply personal book too. I come from a family with a history of mental trauma and mental suffering. I grew up in the kind of family where people would say, you know, pray about it on Sunday, or we don't talk about that kind of thing, which I think a lot of Black folks can relate to. And, you know, when I was learning about this history, I was really looking for us, because so often the story of medical advancement or medical changes, it's told only from the perspective of white patients and white doctors. And because of my own family's relationship to these systems, because I knew people who had been sent to institutions like Crownsville, my great-grandfather was sent to an institution that had segregated wards. You know, I just knew that from a very young age that there was a story here that I think there was a conversation people were starting to be ready to have, and that Black people deserve to really know our history, know our place in this system, especially at a time right now where everyone's talking about therapy more, they're talking about mental health more. You know, you need to know your history to understand your place in the present and your future. And so I really use the story of Crownsville to tell us a bigger American story, a very personal and familial story that takes you into my life and my personal experiences, but also really tells you the story from the eyes and the perspective of the patients and employees who lived through it. And it took me 10 years to get to know these people, to record all these interviews and to gather all these records. But that's the soul of this book.
So you got to interview people who had been there, had stayed there? Or
absolutely, yeah.
Patients and doctors, or was it just patients?
Patients, staff, doctors, neighbors, siblings, wow, and best friends of patients. You know, I really tried to get to know the whole community, because, you know, the Black community in Annapolis, but also Baltimore, really in the DMV area, it has this very rich history there. And in many cases, the Black communities in that part of the country, and many other parts, of course, they feel like their side of the story when it comes to so many important issues, mental health included, just hasn't been told. And so this book is really a reframing, an examination of something that maybe you thought you knew. You thought you understood what these asylums were like. You thought you understood the history here. Well, let me tell you an entirely new perspective. And so this includes dozens of people's testimony, families, records, photographs, transcripts, letters from state officials, patient files, all kinds of stuff that I've uncovered over the last 10 years to really bring it to life.
I was just about to ask you how long it took you to do this research, and you just said it 10 years.
I was actually, if I'm being honest, it's almost 11 years, because I was just 19 years old. I got started on this. I'm 30 now, and it came first from a place of passion. I just wanted to study it as a college student. But then I realized as the years went on and my relationships in the community just grew deeper and deeper, that there was a book here, and a story that needed to be told at a national level.
Now, are you from the DMV area?
I am not. I was born in Chicago, actually, but my mom was born in Baltimore, which is something that I write about in one part of the book. My grandmother was an immigrant from Cuba and came to Baltimore as a child, and, you know, experienced some of the segregation and racism of the city firsthand in the 40s. And that trauma that she experienced there really shaped my family. And so I have that connection, but I wasn't born there.
Mm-hmm. So you have Cuban roots, as well as African-American roots. That's
right. So on my dad's side, we don't even know the full length of the history, although we do know, going back a ways. But my dad's family was enslaved in Virginia and in Georgia.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, how did this turn in from a passion to a book? How did it go from you just being absorbed in it as in college to then being able to get a book, someone interested in publishing a book about it?
You know, at every step of the journey, I'm not even sure that I knew what was going to come next. Certainly at 19, I didn't really have a grand plan. You know, okay, I'm going to work on this for 10 years and then I'll have a great book. I thought, okay, I'm going to write a 100-page document, basically a senior thesis that I'm going to give to Harvard University, and they will be able to include the perspective of Black Americans in the curriculum. They'll let them be part of the official story. And so that was the first stage, was just doing the research, getting access from the state of Maryland to get into these records and to understand the history and starting to build some of those relationships. But when I finished, I started to just feel that there was more work to be done. And I was so close to so many people who lived there. There are so many elders in that community who are in their 90s now, and who worked at this hospital for decades. I mean, 30, 40 years of their life given to trying to save patient lives there, trying to reform this place that had such a difficult history. And I felt like, they deserve to have their flowers. They should have received more recognition from the government, locally and at the state level. And so I just kept interviewing them and adding more and more interviews to a file that I was building. And it was around 2020, after George Floyd's murder, that I realized a lot of Black Americans were suffering during the pandemic. They didn't feel like they had an outlet, or didn't always know who to lean on to process everything that was happening at that time. And so I started to suspect that, it's not just me who comes from a family with a history of these struggles. There are other Black Americans who are ready to have this conversation now. And there aren't a whole lot of books that, when it comes to mental health and self-care and wellness, that highlight and elevate us. And so I thought that was the right moment. And so I decided to work with a Black editor at Hachette named Krishan Trotman, because I really wanted this to be a book where, everyone involved at all those editorial levels just understood this history and had that love and extra level of care for the story.
I can see that. And I can see this being a passion story, but I can also see is it kind of confirming some of the pain that we feel when it comes to the medical community, because I think we're just getting to a point as a community, the African American community, of starting to trust the medical system. And I'm talking not just mental health, but physical health as well. But then we read something like this and then find out that this hospital didn't close, but only a few years ago, basically. And then for some people, it confirms those fears that, see, I told you, this is why I don't trust doctors, or this is why I don't trust Western medicine, or this is why I would rather go overseas and, and get the spices and medications over there because they don't care.
Well, when people have said that to me, and I have people in my own family who feel that way about the American medical system, I will say, when you see this history, it gave me a lot more empathy and patience and understanding for people who feel that way. Because when you look at the history, the truth is these systems were not built with our humanity in mind. And, and I can understand why people would then have the reaction of recoiling from it or retreating from it. I think, though, what I would tell people is that there are, groundbreaking Black researchers, doctors, psychiatrists, therapists, and who are doing all kinds of work, who are doing some of the most amazing research. One woman who comes to mind for me is a Black psychiatrist working in Philly named Dr. Tammy Benton. She is working with Black children in that city and doing unbelievable research and affirming them every single day. And so there are people who do work here and care about us and reflect us. The numbers are very small. And so that's one of the things many experts say we need now is, more support, more encouragement for people of all backgrounds to get through these fields and to get through the difficulties of the schooling so that they can be there to support and really transform the field. But I understand, let me tell you how this hospital began. In 1911, when officials created Crownsville, they were openly debating their theories about Black people's bodies and minds. And one of the prevailing ideas in the years after emancipation was that emancipation had in some ways been a mistake, and Black people who were struggling or not really getting with the status quo, that it was because they couldn't mentally handle being free. And so they saw Black people's minds and their mental capacities as so different from white people that is why they wanted to build these separate, segregated places. But then on top of that, officials in Maryland decided that while they wanted to build this hospital, they didn't really fully want to pay for it. So they marched initially 12 Black men, 12 Black patients into a forest in 1911 and forced them to build the hospital from the ground up.
Yeah.
So when they arrived at Crownsville, there was no hospital, there was no ward, there was no room to go relax in. They had to build it, something no other group of patients was ever forced to do. And that's how the hospital begins. And I think that origin story tells you a lot about the lack of trust in the historical way in which these systems have viewed us, right? Because, I mean, the first question it raised for me as a reporter is, how could someone be deemed so sick, so mentally unwell that they need to be sent to an asylum, but also so healthy that they can be forced to build their own asylum all the way from the ground up in the cold weather with their bare hands? And I include some photographs in the book from 1911, from 1912 of the patients who built this place that still stands more than a century later. You drive down Crownsville Road in Anne Arundel, you will see these unbelievable brick structures built with patient labor. And that's really how the story begins. And so it gives me, I have that understanding, you know, this history.
Or drive down there.
Yeah.
And I may have seen it and not realized what it was, but now I have a whole different appreciation for this. And it's amazing to me that these people had to build their own asylum. Because
isn't it like a metaphor, right? For so many of the ways that Black Americans feel about this country, like we had to build it for ourselves and not get the credit, you know?
I was writing some notes because I had a few things I didn't want to forget while you were talking. And one of them is when you said that they thought we were having problems handling freedom, which would be understandable after 250 years of not having it. It would be logical that a person can't just overnight turn on a dime for something they've never experienced. So but the idea that they thought it was some sort of flaw is ridiculous, but I'm not surprised about it. But there also has been a long held myth, especially then, but still now, that we can tolerate more. We can tolerate more pain, we can tolerate more stuff, you know, discomfort, things that other people wouldn't be expected to tolerate. We're somehow our bodies and spirits are supposed to tolerate. And then that leads to us not getting treatment early for certain things because of that.
That's right. And a lot of doctors believe those things are connected, that the reason why surveys show that medical students to this day will sometimes give Black women less pain medication, less support during a complicated pregnancy is because they believe Black people are so different. And those attitudes, those ideas come from this same period of history where doctors started writing all these theories without even asking and interviewing Black people about what they were going through, what the years after emancipation were like for them. You know, there were a couple doctors who did try to push back on some of those guys and say to them, well, don't you think the experience of having been enslaved might have been traumatic for them? Maybe that's, and they were being told, you know, hush, no, we've got it handled here. And so you have to laugh to keep from, you know, from going crazy yourself. And so, you know, when you talk to doctors, many of them believe that the reason some of those attitudes linger is because, you know, these doctors who I'm writing about, you know, who created places like Crownsville, and Crownsville was not the only segregated asylum in America. There were a bunch of them. Those doctors, they weren't nobodies. They weren't just random guys who got this job and then decided to build this place. Many of them were founding members of organizations. They were leaders in things like the American Psychiatric Association. Their last names are on buildings and roads in Maryland and beyond.
Some names that we'd recognize today if we saw them?
Possibly. I mean, certainly if you're in the Maryland area, you know, people with last names like Marbury, Hugh Young, the son of a Confederate who is one of the buildings at Crownsville is named after him. You know, these are people who were journaling and writing about their beliefs about Black patients, who were very excited about the use of Black patient labor at the hospital. And, you know, there are all kinds of connections. And And, even the person who drafted the first segregation ordinance in Baltimore, which really set the tone for sort of apartheid-like ordinances that were copycat ordinances all over the US. That person had a tie to Crownsville. So many of these people they were boards of directors, they were leaders, they were going to professional conferences and spreading their ideas around. So they weren't just conspiracy theorists. These were the mainstream people. And that's why some of those attitudes linger, many believe.
Yeah. Something else I wrote down. The characterizations that we've seen in film about segregated asylums, are those accurate? For example, and I expect they are pretty much accurate. I remember, I don't know if you've seen the series Queen. It's the counterpart to Roots, but it's about Alex Haley's mother's side of the family. And she was admitted to an insane asylum. But the one she was in, they had white people in there too. But the conditions were just horrible. I don't know how anybody could get better. It just seems like it was just almost like being caged.
Yeah. Well, that is accurate, especially for the first half of the 20th century. They really didn't have much in the way of medication. They tried some different types of, restraints and experimental procedures, and it often didn't work. And mental health care was bleak for everybody of every racial background. But for what I found in the records and in the reporting that I did on Crownsville is that for Black patients, it was another step down, even worse. And that in addition to going home to these overcrowded, filthy places, that during the day, they were forced to do way more work than other patients were forced to do. Working on a massive farm, they would rent Crownsville patients out to private businesses, sort of on a model that looks like what you see prison labor look like today. They would make them serve meals to the staff. So, you might imagine it would be the other way around, but they were kind of acting like the servants to the employees of Crownsville. And so there was kind of this good old days antebellum recreation, going on there in those early decades. And it's not until the 40s and 50s and 60s when Black men and women finally get permission to get jobs at Crownsville. And they finally become doctors and nurses and aides and assistants and researchers, that they start to change the culture. And that is truly my favorite part of the book, when you start to see the heroes arrive and our own community comes into this place and they really start to change it from the ground up. They don't have the top jobs at first. They don't have all the power, but they bring in all these amazing acts of kindness and support to patients. So many of the first Black women to get jobs there, they know the first thing they notice when they get there is that nobody's been properly bathing or washing the hair of all these Black men and women. So they sit them down, they start washing their hair, combing it out, braiding their hair. They notice many of them don't have proper clothes. So they go home and they start sewing and repairing and bringing in clothes to give to their patients. And these are families that didn't have much money themselves. These are their first jobs. So they're taking this off their back and giving it to their own patients. They created innovative recreation programs. I tell the story of a family of a woman named Barbara Arthur and her husband, T. Arthur, whose families built the entire recreation department really at Crownsville, that through this Black family was so successful that other white institutions were coming to visit and write notes and copy what they were doing. And so it's those moments where you see that in spite of all the negativity and the horror and the pain that the community has been put through and the way that the state has treated this institution, there are these heroes who come in and did what they could every single day to save patient lives. And that's the part of the book that brings you back up after you've seen the tough stuff that you're talking about, and
then you start to see the goodness of humanity come.
Exactly.
Well, I applaud you for taking on this project at such a young age and seeing it through. It's 10 years is a long time when you're 19.
It is. I guess if you went back and you told 19-year-old me, oh, you're going to write a book, I would have been so scared. I would have said, no, thank you. But I kind of accidentally, I guess, just kept going and it snowballed from there. But, my family has really been on a journey over the last 10 years. You know, as I mentioned, my family used to be the kind of family that would say, we don't talk about that stuff, go pray about it, or go to your room. And, you know, my parents had a hard time. My grandparents had a hard time talking about their emotions. But now my family's done a 180. I mean, most of us do therapy. We talk about our feelings during the pandemic. When we were separated, we would get on Zoom and support each other and talk about everything for hours and hours, checking in on each other all the time. You know, and we really have made all these changes because anyone who reads this book will read about a family member of mine who went through a mental health crisis and how that experience really changed my family. And so one of the reasons I think I was able to finish the book, that fire stayed within me, is that it became very personal. The country's mental health care crisis came to my front door, basically. And so, you know, I felt like, okay, for this loved one who's struggling so hard to get care. I mean, they were telling me they were going to these facilities, they were going to emergency rooms and seeing white doctors who just didn't seem to care about them, didn't care about their fears and their concerns. And it was, you know, really angering for me. It was frustrating for me to see how in the present day, there were all these parallels to what I was studying going back to 1911 or 1920 or 30. But it really just put that fire back in me, that feeling like, okay, this is urgent and the story needs to be out there because, you know, we can't imagine a better future. We can't build a better mental health system in this country if we don't first understand why we got here. How did all of this get to this point? And I think the story of Crownsville really tells you, and it shows you that.
Wow. Well, unfortunately, we've come to the end. But I do want to know, now that you have achieved this monumental work, because this is wonderful. It's not something that we're seeing every day. Now that you've achieved this, are you doing research for any new books, or do you want to write about more little known pieces of history?
I absolutely plan to write other books. And I don't know what my next book is going to be, if I'm being honest with you, although I do love that intersection of history and bringing it to the current moment and sort of using my tools as a journalist to help us understand our world and our country. So I know it'll be something about that. But this book was a real labor of love. So I'm going to take a couple months to rest.
Don't just rush into it.
You know, because I want to do it right. I don't want to rush into it. But, you know, this is my baby and it's out in the world now. And I'm so grateful. And, you know, I know I'll do another one someday.
Right, because the book just came out, I think it was 3 weeks ago, roughly.
January 23rd, yes.
Mm-hmm. So
yeah,
it's new. Mm-hmm. So
congratulations
on really an amazing project. Also a unique project. We've had over 600 people on this show and we hadn't had that subject broached. Not the way you've done it.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. And it means a lot to me to be able to share this with your community of listeners because, you know, this book is for us. It's our history. So thank you.
Right. We've not talked about mental health many times, but you did the history and you took a specific institution and what happened with it. And
we're able to give so many different layers.
Right.
To address a lot of concerns that are in the African-American community. So I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for being a guest on the show and continued success with the book.
Thank you very much. I am so grateful to be on here with you, to be able to meet you both. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for being here. You have a wonderful evening.
You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, well, we're bringing on our final guest for tonight, and she will be on momentarily. Her name is Ellisha or Ellisha. I think it's Ellisha Newton, but we're going to find out how her name is pronounced. She's going to tell us. I know Newton is right. So,
we know
is it Ellisha? Is that what it is?
Well,
can you unmute?
Ellisha.
Ellisha. Okay. All right. Ellisha. Welcome to Black Authors Matter TV, Ellisha.
Hello, hello, hello. How are you? Good to see you both again.
Good seeing you. Look at you looking all chipper.
And you have your book called You Are Powerful. So you want to show us the cover of your book. And you are, you have a master's in education.
Yes.
And your book is for children primarily.
Yes, it's resonating with all ages. I have adults to say, I need to have this book for myself because it's a book of affirmations, literally. So literally, I said 3 and up because typically students can read for themselves at 3, but anyone can read it at any age to any child. And like I said, adults are finding it engaging and it resonates with them with the piece of music that I wrote in the book, as well as art. It's interdisciplinary, as well as talking about God's light is the love that the others see in us. And it's empowering, and it's also impactful. As an educator, one of the ways that I make sure that if I'm leading a group of scholars, youth or adult scholars, or if I'm working with leaders who have a group of scholars, I have them to think about students who may be reluctant readers in particular, and making certain that they feel what I say in this book, which is they are amazing. That's what the name of the song is that I wrote in there.
Do you find that they're reluctant readers because they're afraid to read out loud? I mean, because of judgment?
That, and also if they don't understand what they're reading, they shut down and they don't have the confidence that they need. So one of the things that I'm always talking to leaders about, whether they're educators or stakeholders, and when I say stakeholders, it's anyone in the life of a youth or adult scholar, is allow them to walk and talk and solve problems, because they build that confidence when they do. I'm a Girl Trek leader and crew leader, and one of the things we do is walk and talk and solve problems. So I tell leaders, allow them to do that before school, after school, or during advisory, or make it a club. And if it's a club, all you need is one adult to sponsor it, and just like, and what goes on in Girl Trek stays in Girl Trek, just like Vegas used to be.
Goes on in Vegas.
It
And
used to be
also
like
on
that
cruise.
back in the day. And then we also say, if you want to hurt yourself, of course, we have to self-report as an educator. But that's one of the reasons why I use my book and others with my consulting and professional development for leaders, and say that all of that exact thing, in addition to helping them create action plans to eliminate the disparities of scholars now reading on grade level.
Okay, are they still teaching phonics in school?
So we are teaching that. It has come back again, because at one point it was taken out and now it's back in the last 5 or 10 years. So
I didn't like that sight words thing. I was trying to teach my child phonics and they were trying to teach her sight words. I'm like, these two are not meeting.
they need to do both, not one or the other.
Yeah, I think so. They use every tool. But phonics it just helps you to sound things out. And then you start to associate certain word letter groups with sounds, and it's easier to learn to read.
Right.
Especially when some children are getting a late start. Some children are learning to read at home, but a lot of children are not learning to read at home.
Right.
And their real first experience with reading is at school. I guess kindergarten or maybe pre-K. I guess it depends on the state you live in. I think that pre-K is half a day.
It's half a day some places, and it's full day some places, but it also depends on your socioeconomic status, because you cannot qualify to go to pre-K if you make too much money.
Yeah, that's
how my daughter works. She's over there all day.
Yeah, it just depends on the school district.
Yeah, I think it is. Here in Texas, it is based on your income. So you can't go to pre-K if you make too much money.
Right.
Well, not the public pre-K.
Right.
If you make
you can go to private pre-K all day long.
Right.
When you get paid.
Right. Well, public pre-K is only for
Yeah.
certain income children. And you know, a lot of them may need more help. If you read at home, you're gonna really be so far ahead of children who don't read at home. I don't know
Yes.
how they
And
really make the classrooms work in that regard because
so if you just talk to your children, research says when you're in the grocery store, for example, this is an orange, this is an apple, having conversations, how was your day? This is, what is this, talking to them. They come to school with a 3,000 word,
vocabulary.
actually there's 3,000 that the other children whose parents don't talk to them come with a 3,000 word deficit.
Oh, advantage. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
I
if you don't
believe
talk
that.
to your children and you're putting them in front of the TV or a device, then they may have 3,000 words of a deficit in pre-K. So
Okay.
then it builds
Okay.
as they go from pre-K to kinder, because many kids don't go to school till first grade.
Right.
I thought
So they
kindergarten.
come with 3,000 words in pre-K that they're missing, and then the kinder it builds. So yeah, that's just conversation, which is reading readiness as well.
Right.
So that goes to show, or even more solidifies the fact that we shouldn't be using baby talk when talking to our kids.
Absolutely not. One of the things as my own children, they're adults now, but back when they were little, that is part of my mom was a teacher, my grandmother, aunties, so my husband's aunt was my 7th grade English teacher. Like literally the whole family has always talked to the child and asked them what they were thinking, but never baby talk.
Mm.
Yeah, I talked to my daughter just like I would talk to an adult from when she was really born. I never did the baby talk thing. And when she was 3, she could engage in lengthy conversations with adults. And people wonder, well, how did you do it? Because I talked to her just like I talked to an adult, you know. I don't, in terms of the vocabulary, the conversation. And if there was a word she didn't understand, I explained it, to her what it was.
There you go.
That's important. Very important.
It was a great
Vocabulary. That's what you were asking earlier, Dr. Rhonda, not just the deficit of the words, but also the vocabulary, not just using baby words, but introducing the students to more words each day.
Right. And tone matters as well.
Yes.
Because if you talk to your child in anger all the time, and I hear this unfortunately a lot of times in the grocery store and Walmart, people are just, yelling at their tone with their kids is always an angry tone.
Yeah,
And
that's the other reason they shut down too.
yes,
Don't have the confidence to want to read, and they shut down.
yes, or even talk, meet people.
Exactly.
It hurts with socialization and everything else.
Yeah, that's very important, socialization and holding a conversation. One of the things that we always talk to scholars about, and also leaders who are talking with scholars, is having them to do presentations, because it practices those skills. So that when they're presenting, it's part of literacy anyway. And so that's really powerful for them to, at an early age, be comfortable with taking risks, which is also part of why they don't read. Some reluctant readers don't.
Now, You Are Powerful is a part of a book bundle, correct?
Yes, so it's You Are Powerful in Action, and also a companion guide to You Are Powerful. So You Are Powerful, a companion guide, and You Are Powerful, you write in it as you go, as you're reading it. And, whether you're in a presentation with me, a speech, or if I'm speaking with a group of scholars or adults, or if you're just reading it on your own. And then You Are Powerful in Action has also been presented as a workshop, and You Are Powerful is also an e-course. So when You Are Powerful in Action, the reader actually goes through the process of reading and making reflections and feedback, giving feedback to the prompts they're given. And also at the end, they are prompted to use the ideas that they've brainstormed to create a book, a play, a production, another new ending to the book I've written, a plethora of different things that they can themselves take action with doing and showing how they're powerful.
I have a question just about you, and since you're surrounded by teachers, did you ever consider being anything but a teacher? Did you know you were going to be a teacher when you were a little girl? Did you all ever play school and you were the teacher and all of that? Or did you ever say, well, I'm not gonna be a teacher because everybody's a teacher, and let me do something different? Did you ever think to do something different? Or did you always want to be a teacher?
So I was going to be a lawyer.
Okay.
And which, I mean, we debate in education anyway, but and also a singer because I sing. So I had a couple of different things I was gonna do. So actually I went to school to be at Dillon University, an undergraduate, to be a music teacher. And our professor suggested that we do regular education as a degree because they were cutting music programs, which is ingenious, and I'm glad they said it. And I ended up having science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and I've taught social studies, literally all subjects, because when I did that in undergrad, I fell in love with STEM. It wasn't a buzzword back then, but I did 45 hours at Southern University Lab School through a program called C-STEM for educators to come in the summer and get a hands-on training with Project WET, Project WILD, Project Learning Tree, all different types of ways to engage your students with STEM. And so I was hooked, and I did my master's in educational leadership because I've been director principal, grants, funding for federal government federal funds for Title 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 26 and a half years of working for other folks, as well as district level, and at Texas Southern University, I was an internship supervisor and doctoral fellow, and
education is really just what you do.
right. So in that process, I have the perspective of teaching everything from pre-K to adults, literally. So I really feel like as a lawyer, I would have done less, even though I plead the case of all scholars and the leaders who were, over them at all those different levels. So I kind of do it anyway, even though it's with the label of educator and builder and innovator.
So when did you decide to take it to a different level and write books? You've been an educator for so long, and now you're writing books geared toward the very population that you're teaching.
So in 2021, my husband sat me down. You have to pop your collar when you say that part. And so I literally, that beginning of that year, I said, this is the last year I'm working for other people. So I knew I was going to start a company. I was going to start a school. And then I decided to do a leadership type institute for adults, which is coming soon. But so I have been a published author since the 5th grade, when my teacher told me the book I wrote, because I shared it with everybody else, I was a published author. And then in undergrad, I wrote a book in children's lit with a colleague. So that is in the Dillon University Library. So, but this is the first book I've written since then, in 1990 something or another, between 90 and 95. And literally I woke up, I wrote a book that is actually, the pre-orders started today, How to Love Your Job Daily for Educators, 7 Secrets to Understanding Health Equals Wealth. But this book I wrote second, and literally out of my sleep, I woke up and wrote this book. The Lord gave it to me. So in 7 days, I got the illustrations and all that ready, and then within 30 days, it was published. So that was a very long way to say in 2003, I wrote this book, You Are Powerful, and then came companion guide to You Are Powerful after presenting at a STEM camp. Actually, I took the students through that process. And then You Are Powerful in Action came from that presentation as well. So 2023 is a very short answer to your question.
You seem like you really enjoy engaging with students.
I agree.
I do. Yes, yes, yes. And I feel compelled to work with their leaders, whether they're in a classroom at the campus level, higher ed, or whatever, so that I can reach more of them.
Okay.
So yes, my
I
passion
think
is for
calling.
little people because as a young girl, I loved math and science, but girls weren't really encouraged to thrive in math and science. And I didn't think I was a good math student back then because I was making careless errors is what I found out. And then when Eloise Williams, I will never forget, she was a counselor, but she was her background in a middle school, but she walked me through the steps, and I was writing it to everything, trying to cram it all in one space, wasn't giving myself enough space, just making errors. And so as a young person, your village always says you're beautiful, you're smart, you're amazing. So at that point, I started to listen and believe through their prompting. And then, I saw the excellence in myself as well. So I think about that student, me as that little girl, when I'm talking to other leaders, and I have them to think through that, because I don't want any girl to feel like she can't do well in math, because I felt like that, and I took doctoral level statistics and did well. So, 28 years of marriage and 30 years from college and doctoral level work, if I can do it, definitely any girl can. And then for our boys, same concept, because a lot of times we put emphasis on one group, like let's make sure girls are in STEM, and then we don't make sure the boys are getting everything that they need. So that's why I have girls and boys on the front of the cover.
Awesome. Because I find that at sometimes we say things and maybe we're saying it to help, but we as adults often put certain ideas into kids' heads by saying, well, girls aren't really good at math. And so now the young lady has built an excuse in her head why she's not good at math. And then the same thing with boys. Maybe boys aren't good at English or whatever the stereotype is. So it puts it in their heads that they don't have to be good, or maybe they're not doing as well because they don't do well because they're a boy or because they are a girl. So I like the fact that you weren't even putting those ideas into their heads. You're saying, hey, I went through this and I did it. I know you can do it. Let me help you do it.
Yes. And also as a teacher in the middle school classrooms, many of the scholars when I was teaching 8th grade in particular, they start taking the state test in 3rd grade. And then when they came to my English language arts class, because from the very beginning, I tell them I'm taking out all the fluff. I'm only teaching you what you need to know, and go from there. And once they took the test, they came to me to say, what do you mean I don't have to take the test again? What do you mean I'm scored at the highest levels? And then they say it was easy. Well, that's what we said at the beginning. I already told you, so they're like, oh, and everything. And then they start talking to me about what skills that we did in class, the root words and things like that helped them while they were taking the assessment. So it literally was a mindset shift for them, because they knew from the beginning, because that's what we said all year. And then for them to actually see it, and then not only not have to take summer school and not have to take it a second time, and then get the accolades for, academics as well as the attendance being better. So I had the same kind of results with Texas Southern with the people who were in principal certifications passing the test the first time. So just always stellar results, because, the expectation is you're going to exceed my expectations, which are already high.
The children will rise.
Expectations. Yes.
They do. If you don't expect anything, that's what you'll get, nothing. And children pick up on that. And children really, like to please adults or the people in their sphere, their parents or their teachers. They really do want to get their recognition
Yeah.
from teachers. But sometimes I think if they fall too far behind, they start acting out.
Well,
Just
that's one of the
because
reasons I have this company, because I'm telling leaders, because I've been on both sides, don't forget, we have all the tools we need to make sure we eliminate the disparities of scholars not reading on grade levels. 60% of them are reading below grade level district-wide in lots of school districts in the country. And so literally, if they're thriving in literacy, which is, I say English language arts, reading, writing, listening, presenting, and embedding research, they're going to thrive in science, technology, engineering, mathematics, football, cheer, basket weaving, whatever they're doing. So we want them to thrive, read on grade level and above, and not just, the minimum, whatever the state requirement says.
Right, right.
Do you think we'll be able to make up for the learning loss from COVID?
If we use the tools we have that we know work, yes. If we keep trying to do things the way we did them before, maybe it'll be an uphill battle because it's changed.
That's a
So
change.
our thought process needs to change.
Yeah.
And I was in the classroom during COVID, so
This is why some of us are still teleworking 4 years after the pandemic.
it can be done. And there are, I am hopeful because there are many of us who are like-minded all around the world, not just the country. Within my network, a lot of us have been talking, and even last week at Space Exploration Educator Conference, a lot of them in different countries are saying the same thing. So we can do it. We just need to work together.
So,
And also having the parents as the stakeholders and the people in the community, because some of the disconnect is some of our parents of the scholars didn't do well in school, still don't like coming to the school, and they think that whenever they do come to the schools for something negative, and to shift that thought process. When both my boys, they're older now, one's 25 and one's 20. When they were in middle school, I was at a point where I was either in school, or I'm not certain what was happening at the time, but I was able to go during the day to be part of the VIP, is what the principal called it. So he would have, it was just volunteer, like PTA, but he called us the VIP too. So he had the red carpet and all kinds of stuff. But anyway, so because we were on campus and we were visible, the scholars knew, I might see my mama, so I'm going. Not that they were doing what they shouldn't be, but it's just having them to be able to see that, even if it wasn't their mom, some mom or dad would be there, and that we were not just parents at home, we're also stakeholders for other people's children as well. So I think that kind of connection, and in the parent connection in the classroom with the teachers as well, is important. And I call them very impactful people, not just very.
In the comments, she said that we need enthusiastic educators. And it sounds like you benefited from having enthusiastic educators, and you are one yourself now.
Yeah, yes, my mom, 44 years and 10 summers. My grandma, 25 years in the public school system, 10 years at the kindergarten academy, and pledged Delta Sigma Theta at 67 years old. Yes, she was very spry. And Auntie, as I said, is an educator. My husband's aunt was my 7th grade English teacher, literally surrounded by educators my whole life. Not just educators, but, professional people. But
so do they all teach at K through 12? In there, or are they?
My mom did, I think, 1 year in elementary, but most of it was middle school.
Okay.
And my grandmother was elementary, and she literally, there's a whole community of people because of her who read, and started reading at 3 years old. She had a audio tape, cassette tape she created to teach them after she taught them to practice it. And then they had their grandchildren, their great grandchildren coming to get tapes from her. And then at her funeral even, the pastor was a cousin, and he said he was one of her students, and he asked everybody to stand up who was either taught by her or, you know, her tapes or something. And there were more than 20 people standing.
I was about to say the whole building stood up.
More than 20, yeah. So she
That's
was
awesome.
Well, teachers shape the leaders of tomorrow.
Yes, we do.
They can shape. I had great teachers, so I was.
So,
blessed.
you know, we'd be remiss without if we didn't ask you, what is your advice to my daughter's a teacher, and I think your daughter's a teacher, right?
Oh no, she's an accountant. She
Oh,
does.
wasn't she? Didn't she teach for a little? I could have sworn I heard you say she did. Well, never mind.
My niece taught.
Oh, okay.
The one
Well,
that was in New Orleans. The one that was in New Orleans was teaching.
Oh, okay.
So that's probably who you're talking about.
Oh, okay. Well, what is your advice to up and coming teachers? Maybe people who are thinking about going into the profession, or maybe they're new to the profession. What is your advice to them?
So I've written courses to share with people at the college level who are becoming teachers. And so the same advice I give them. You have me as a contact. My information is on the screen and in the chat. Literally, whatever you need, we are here to help you. Do not get discouraged. Ask for help. And ask as many times as you need it. Literally, my company is in existence because we are making certain that leaders like you have caring, competent, culturally responsive proficiency in teaching whatever your content area is. And we encourage you to collaborate with other content area leaders and also have a mentor. And I became the mentor that I didn't have as a director principal, because the people I called answered, but I expected to have one person, you know, guide me through, and ended up having to have it all in one place. So part of the mentorship we do for adults as well as youth is having all in one place at Renewed Spirit Publishing, whatever you need in schools to happen. So literally, like I said, I have a global network with my colleagues. So whatever I don't know, somebody in my network does. And we have all the resources you need to do whatever you want to do. And we will walk you through how to get that done.
All right.
Renewed Spirit Publishing is the website, and you can find me on Linktree. All my Linktrees to X, I was about to say Twitter, and LinkedIn, Instagram, as well as Facebook, Renewed Spirit Publishing. And then, you know, of course, they have Ellisha Newton, because you have to do it as a person as well. So you'll see Ellisha Newton and this little icon here that says Renewed Spirit Publishing.
Okay.
You'll find that there.
Okay.
Because sometimes you need a renewed spirit.
Yeah. Well, Annie Woods is watching. Yeah, I wanted to tell her, Annie Woods, who's watching, says that her favorite quote regarding students is, "My teacher thought I was smarter than I was, so I was."
And
so
guess who that is?
On target. Is this one of your?
That's my mama.
Your mama.
An educator, the one I was just talking to you about.
Okay.
Yeah.
She didn't say she was your mom. She said you were on target, Mrs. Newton. So
yes.
Okay, well, great. Well, with that, mama has spoken, and so we can't.
She has the last word.
So thank you for being a guest on Black Authors Matter TV, and thank you for all you do for the students and educators.
Thank you. And I do want to say one thing. Remember me, lady. When you think of lady, my superpower is love. All the people in my village, I am because they are. I release any stress that I'm having with making sure that I inject fun, jubilance, and self-care in my day daily, and I encourage others to do the same. A, I appreciate you. D, what are your dreams? Allow me to help you walk through the process of making those dreams come true. And you, I see you, I believe in you, and what you have to say is important.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Well,
I love the way to end the show.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank
We
you
are
for being
at the
here.
very end of our time. And so we're going to say good night to everybody. We'll be back next Tuesday night at the same time with 4 amazing guests. I'm Gwen Richardson signing off.
And I'm Dr. Rhonda Lawson. Have a wonderful evening and a great week.
Thank you for tuning in, and join us next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern for another edition of Black Authors Matter TV.